Hello there. I don't know about you, but I love watching travel videos from reviewers like Noel Phillips or Non-Stop Dan. One of the things that bothers me though is that whenever they get to the wine, they don't really say very much about it. So here I am about to set off on a trip to the UK from Auckland via Dubai. So I'm in the Emirates Lounge in Auckland Airport, and I thought I'd have a look at some of their selection of wines. So I have here to try at the moment some Craggy Range, Temunaroad Sauvignon Blanc, and that's from the Martinborough wine region, and that's the 2024 vintage of that. Now, Craggy Range were founded in 1998. The winery is owned by the Peabody family, and principally, actually, Craggy Range is a Hawke's Bay producer where they have vineyards on the gimlet gravels and are renowned for producing some fantastic reds. The Le Sol and the Sophia are amongst New Zealand's top red wines. However, they also have vineyards on Temunaroad in some of the best terroir in the Martinborough region. And Martinborough is quite a cool region. It's a valley facing due south in the southeast corner of New Zealand's North Island. And as a result, the valley pretty much faces the Southern Ocean and Antarctica. So the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. This can be a very cool region. And thus, this is where Craggy Range grow Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc. So here they're vineyards on the Temuna terraces. These are terraces of friable alluvial soils, mostly gravels and clay laid down by the Aromas River. And evidently in the lower terraces, where Craggy Range have their Sauvignon Blanc, also these soils, as well as the clays and the gravels, tend to contain a certain amount of limestone that helps give a wonderful minerality to the fruit produced here. Temuna is about 3 miles outside the town of Martinborough itself. And the meaning of the name Temuna in the Maori language, te reo, means secret place. Perhaps the connotation, this is a secret special place. 2024 is the 25th vintage that the Peabody family have made at Craggy Range. Fruit from this wine is entirely hand-picked, quite unusual for Sauvignon Blanc, of which in Marlborough will be machine-picked in the cool of the night. Wine has a richer, fuller flavour and texture than those you'll find from Marlborough. And to emphasise this, the fruit is fermented and aged both in stainless steel and also in various types of oak. So while a portion of the wine does its fermentation in stainless steel tanks, some of it will go into larger French oak cuves. And also for maturation, the wine will age mostly in old oak, with a percentage of about 2 to 3% of new oak. I've seen various other notes for what's used as well as barrique. There's some suggestion there's some amphora being used, but certainly larger format barrels are used. Whether those are punctions, cuves, or foudre is slightly unclear from the different notes I've seen and may vary from vintage to vintage. The wine also ages on its lees, so I think the idea is to give the wine some richness and some fullness without necessarily giving it oak characteristics, which would probably overpower the fruit. And the period of aging is relatively short as well. The note I've got says 3 months. And I think that's pretty typical of the style of Martinborough Sauvignon Blancs, being a little bit fuller, richer, more tropical and less sharp and grassy than their counterparts from Marlborough. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? First of all, just the colour is a very pale yellow with greenish hints. Swirling it here, the wine is listed on its label as having 13% alcohol, and it's slowly forming some tears there. I'm not expecting it to be a massively full-bodied wine, but let's see. So I'll take a look at the aromas next. The aromas are indeed rich and tropical, and straight to the fore there's a passion fruit note. That's followed up by sort of slightly riper, more tropical notes. Perhaps there's a hint of mango there. Some quite pronounced and quite exciting flavours. So it's for taste. There's a good acidity, there's a reasonable weight and a bit of a texture to the wine as well. I mean, it's not heavy. There's an intensity of passion fruit note coming right at the centre of the palate. There are some minerally crisp notes, there's some delicate top notes of blackcurrant leaf and that sort of thing. But actually there's an underlying rich mango. There's a roundness coming from the alcohol. I don't particularly notice yeasty notes, but actually the weight and the richness of the palate points to lees aging. Perhaps the acidity isn't quite as sharp and high as you would get from a Marlborough wine, and certainly the fruit is richer, it's at a higher level of ripeness, it's more rounded and opulent than you'd expect from a wine from Marlborough. I think this is a really nice example of the style of Sauvignon Blanc that can be produced in Martinborough, and it's a nice change to the wines of Marlborough. The producer also suggests that this is a wine that could be kept for 2 or 3 years in the cellar. I can certainly see it has the weight and the richness to do that. It might even last a little longer than that. It's got some quite good acidity there. And the flavours last reasonably well. When I looked at the Wine Searcher aggregated critics score, the aggregation for this vintage comes down to a 92. I think that may be slightly generous, but at the same time I think this is a wine that stands out as having a slightly different, individualistic style. It comes as a little bit of a surprise and as a challenge if you're not familiar to the wines from Martinborough. And if you think you know New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs, it's nice to find something different. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this tasting. If you have, do please press the like button. I'd really appreciate that. If you'd like to watch more of my tastings, it would be great if you considered signing up and subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you do that, take the opportunity also to set yourself an alert and make sure that you're notified every time I publish a new video. And that way you won't miss anything. If you have friends you think might like to watch the video, do feel free to share it with them. I'd really appreciate your support in that way. If you have any comments, I'd love to know what you think about New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs in general, perhaps the wines of Martinborough if you're aware of those, or anything else that relates to the wines I'm looking at and the tastings I'm doing. I will of course leave a link in the notes below to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine, so you can see if it's available in your market and at what price. So thank you once again for watching, and I do hope that if you get the time, you'll make the effort and come and join me for another video wine tasting in the very near future. Until then, bye for now.